We're going to be starting Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Sadi Zayin Amud Aleph. This has to do with when is the Mashiach going to come, and it's a very interesting sugya actually. But since we haven't, I'm sorry, page 97a1 at the very top of the page, last two words, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, 97a1 at the top of the page, and yes, okay. And the elections, Baruch Hashem, really for Am Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, for the state of Israel, the result was just absolutely incredible. I know many Israelis are happy. I know for sure the government of Israel is very happy. So it's a tremendous chesed that Hashem did with Am Yisrael, and I hope that that Donald Trump goes in the straight way, which is to say that he doesn't deviate right or left, but that he do in his second term what he did in his first term. In his first term, he supported Israel tremendously. He recognized the Golan Heights. That was a huge thing. Recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights enabled investment, in foreign investment, to come into the Golan Heights. Huge. Of course, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and he was a great friend of Israel. He established the Abraham Accords. So just to give you a sense of the direction that's happening, because this is kind of related to Yemot HaMashiach, I think. Governor or former Governor Huckabee of Arkansas is not going to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. If you think that I'm right wing, you should hear him.
I gotta give you credit though. Throughout the election, you didn't voice one side.
No, I didn't want to. I'll tell you what. I didn't want to offend anyone. I know you're saying it as a joke, but had I really voiced my opinion?
He's not joking.
Oh, no? Okay, I think I didn't. I mean, at least not in my speeches, right? I was very careful. You all know my thinking.
Rabbi will be in a private room on a Saturday, so no one can record.
I'll tell you what. There was something in the Yeshiva World magazine that said that if somebody voted for Harris, there was an article that came out that I was very opposed to, but the article said you shouldn't let them into Knesset. And really, I don't believe at all in that. Meaning, I do believe that as a Jew we should vote for Trump because it's good for Am Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, of course. But I don't believe in excommunicating people for those types of things.
Because everybody can do teshuvah, right?
Everybody can do teshuvah, of course, and yes, okay. But okay, so Governor Huckabee, he just said, it just came out in the news wires. He said there's no such thing as a Palestinian people, and by the way, there isn't. It's there never has been a Palestinian people. It's a fiction. It's a everybody knows that it's a farce. And I wonder if the Palestinians know it's a farce. I mean, like if I was a Palestinian child, can you show me some history books? Like, okay, like what language did we speak in Palestine? Who was the first president, the second president, third president of Palestine? What was a coin?
There was no Kurdistan.
There was no, right. Okay, no, fair enough. No, by the way, no. And I'm not saying that there are different ethnic groups in the world. Not every ethnic group gets a state. But in this case, we have how many Arab states? So like, why do we have another Arab one? But okay. But getting back to, he said there is no such thing as Palestinians, and that the West Bank doesn't exist. It's Judea and Samaria. This is like the new Trump administration. So it's really very good news for Israel. And again, I pray to Hashem that it continue like this, because sometimes people change their minds, right? Sometimes people, whatever. And I hope that Trump is put in the right direction by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that he always does good with Am Yisrael, with Eretz Yisrael, with the Jewish people. Just one more bit of information. The leaders of Qatar are terrified. You know that they kicked Hamas out, or they're kicking Hamas out of Qatar. The reason is that Trump does not look favorably about Qatar, and it's coming out that he's looking to get rid of Qatar as a country. Why is it there? They're the ones who supported the universities, by the way. It was the money of Qatar that caused all the anti-Semitism in the universities, meaning they funded all these anti-Israel programs. So he just wants to shut down Qatar. So that should be interesting. I don't know if he will, but there's a lot of things happening, a lot of very good things happening for Am Yisrael, I have to say it. So let's keep praying to Hashem. Let's keep doing good things, studying Torah, and inshallah this should continue because we're on the verge of something that could be big. I also want to correct something I said last week. Many of you remember that last week I expressed my concerns because the polls were very close, and I said whoever wins, the other side will go out, there'll be demonstrations, and I was concerned about that. I was wrong for the following reason. The polls were wrong. It wasn't even close.
Thank God.
It wasn't even close. But if it would have been close, let's say if Trump would have lost the popular vote, for example, and he only won the electoral, they would, oh, he lost the popular vote, he's not really legitimate, right? And that's what concerned me, and thank God it didn't happen, because all the polls were wrong. It ended up being a blowout election, and because of that, they're like, there's no legitimacy to anybody who says, oh, I don't recognize the results of the election, because the results were so strong and powerful and overwhelming.
Too big to rig.
Right, well, yeah. And one last thing, actually, I want to say one last thing. 2 days before the, what?
You gotta get it out of your system.
Yeah, I gotta get out of my system. 2 days before the election, I knew Trump would win. I just didn't realize it would be a blow-up, but it was clear to me that he would win. How did I know this? And I knew it as a fact. It was a fact. Okay, so how did I know it? Because the Amish, no, the Amish in Pennsylvania, they never vote. They never go to any elections.
Who?
Amish. Yeah, they're like the Neture Karta.
Last time also.
They don't what?
They voted last time also.
Okay, but this time they all said they're going to vote because the Biden administration put all these rules against their organic farming, and they said that's it. This time they're all going out in droves to vote. I think 150,000 Amish voted. I could be off by the number, and when I heard that they're all going to be voting, I said that's it. That's going to tilt Pennsylvania, because when Trump lost Pennsylvania, it wasn't by 150,000. It was by much less. I think it was by 70,000 votes. Right? So when I heard that the Amish are all going to vote this time and vote in droves, I said, wow, that's Mehal Shamayim. Trump is going to win this election. That was
Hasids, they voted for Trump? Barack Obama.
I think they all voted for
They gave
Trump.
up their own fan.
What? Yeah. They all said, everybody. Rabbi
That's curious.
Mizrahi, Yosef Mizrahi, no, what's that? Moshe Mizrahi, the one from Queens.
That's not.
Everybody was saying you have to vote for Trump. That was the thing. Okay.
Curious skill.
Okay, so we're good. Okay, so I just got.
Is he still the infectious disease guy?
Man, I'm happy I'm not him. Robert Kennedy Jr. has some good plans for him. Whatever they are, and they'll get to the bottom of what happened there. Okay,
Although
so
she's still crying.
she's still crying. Chazita. All right, God bless all of them. And the important thing is that we do what's right. The Jewish people, we do what's good. Hashem blesses us. That's the real truth. So let's study Torah. Amar Rabbi Yohanan. Dor sheben David babo talmidei chachamim mitma'atim. In the generation that David HaMelech, meaning the Mashiach, the son of David HaMelech, the Mashiach arrives, you're going to recognize the generation. So this guy is going to give us different things that are going to happen in the generation of Mashiach, right? So we're going to have different rabbinic statements describing, so that when these things happen, you can begin to say, well, the Mashiach is hopefully on the way. So the first thing is Dor, the generation, Sheben David, the son of David, Babo, arrives in that generation. Here's what's going to happen. Talmidei Chachamim Mitma'atim, real people of Torah, will become fewer and fewer, meaning people of great knowledge of Torah, it's going to become a rarity. I can tell you that in the generation, let's say, of my father, there was tremendous Talmidei Chachamim, and I'm not saying there aren't people of Torah today, God forbid, obviously, but of that caliber, from that generation, from 30 years ago, we had people who really were very impressive and very holy and spiritual, and I'm just not paying attention. But anyway, that's one of the things that's going to happen. And people's eyes are going to be tired from so much anguish, from so much suffering that's going to be happening in that generation. Meaning it's not going to be a pleasant time to live. V'sarot rabot, it's going to be horrible tragedies happening. Ugzerot kashot, horrible decrees. Mitchachot. One decree is going to be almost finished, and then the next decree is going to be coming, right? So it's going to be a generation of tremendous turmoil, tremendous tribulation and hardship. So on the one hand, there's going to be a lessening of real Torah, but on the other hand, there's going to be, at the same time, related to the lessening of real Torah and real Talmidei Chachamim, is going to be an increase in tragedies and an increase in suffering in Am Yisrael. So when you see that, you know that the Mashiach is on the way.
Are these tragedies supposed to happen only in Israel, or it's like everyone?
It doesn't say so. It doesn't say only in Israel. I mean, we know October 7th would certainly fall within the category of horrible things happening, horrible tragedies, people's eyes tired from crying. Right, all the wars in Israel, by the way, we see all the wars that took place over the, Israel is how, only since 1948, and look how many wars they've had, and nonstop terrorism, and nonstop, what happened in the 90s with the Oslo Accords, and then the 2000s, and just nonstop. Literally, like if you look at Jewish history in the land of Israel, it hasn't stopped, right? Even today, I think there was some bombing. They were bombing Tel Aviv, bombing the Shalom. I don't know where they were bombing. Where were they bombing? Right? It's crazy. It's crazy, right? Fighting a 7-front war for survival. So a lot of bad things happened in this generation, right? But not necessarily specifically in Israel. Like, for example, the Holocaust certainly was something that caused people's eyes to be tired from anguish. Yeah.
Is there a certain time frame?
So the time frame is going to be actually the very next passage is going to deal with that. So Tanur Abanan. So there is the following recorded baraita that was known by all the yeshivot, and the baraita deals with the Yemot HaMashiach in slightly greater detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the baraita to you. I'm going to explain it at the superficial level, and then I'm going to explain it at the deeper level. So let's read it now, and I'm going to explain it at the superficial level. Shavua sheben David babo. The week, Shavua, but doesn't mean here a week of 7 days. It means a week of 7 years. During the 7-year period, which is going to end with the Mashiach's arrival, the following things are going to happen.
What page exactly?
Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph 97A1. I said Nun Zayin, I meant to say Sati Zayin, it's my mistake. Thank you for correcting me. Alright. Daf Sadi Zayin Amud Aleph 97A. Alright. So Shana Lishona, the first year of this, so there's going to be a 7-year period. The first year is going to be like this. Mitkayem Miklazeh. The following verse is going to take place, meaning there's a verse that describes what the state of affairs is going to be on the first year. And it's as follows. I'm going to read the verse. Manati Bekem et Geshem. Oh wait, you don't have the whole verse. Okay, God says that I am going to prevent the rain from descending from the heavens to the earth, right? You still don't have it, and in the very next word you're going to have, and it's going to be 3 months before the season of harvest. So the season of harvest starts around Pesach, between Pesach and Shavuot, and it's going to be 3 months before, and that's when you need the rain most. And it's not, and it still wouldn't have rained. And then it's going to rain, and now this you have, on one city. But then the city right next to it, it's not going to rain. Okay. One part of the farm, or one farm will have a deluge. And then there's going to be another farm, not far away, which is going to dry up because it could have no rain. That's a pasuk. I read to you the whole pasuk, even though you didn't have the whole pasuk here. Okay, let me explain to you what this pasuk is. So sometimes you have very, very rainy seasons, and sometimes you have droughts. Now, if there's a rainy season, nobody says, "Oh, it was the act of God." Although we say, "Thank you to Hashem." We believe that if there's a lot of rain and there's tremendous a blessing in the agriculture, we believe it's from God. But nobody's going to say, "Oh, it was a miracle. It rained a lot this year." No, they're going to say it rained a lot. Okay. And now, if there's a drought, nobody says, "Oh my gosh, it's a miracle. It was a drought. It was an act of God." Meaning, if there's a drought, we do believe it's an act of God. But you can't say, "Oh, it was a miracle," because there's cycles, right? Sometimes there's rainy season, sometimes there's dry seasons. Like say, California, they had a crazy drought for 7 years. I don't know how long. There was all these forest fires. I don't know if you remember. And then suddenly last year they had insane amounts of snow in the mountains, and suddenly all the basins filled up. Is that a miracle? No. It's there's rain and sometimes there's droughts, right? There's these cycles. By the way, like even the temperature. Sometimes you have cold seasons in the earth where you have, let's say, an ice age, and sometimes you have hot seasons. So nobody's going to say, "Oh, it's a miracle. Look at this." But what God is going to do here, He's going to make it so it rains on one city, and then the very next city there's going to be no rain, or it's going to rain on one farm, and the very next farm there's going to be zero. Meaning, God wants us to be in a situation where we recognize what's going on. How can it rain in this farm, and then down the block on the next farm it's not raining? How does that make any sense? God is going to do that to wake us up, right? So it's not going to be like a regular drought, but it's going to be, something that doesn't make sense according to the rules of nature, right? If it's raining here, it's raining down the block, and it's raining down the other block, right? Rain doesn't go in one specific spot, and that's it, right? So that's going to be the first year God is going to be upset at Am Yisrael, and He's going to make a situation, not drought, but this weird weather, where partially drought and then partially rain. All right, that's year one. Year two.
Is it easy recognizable, and it's not just like, well, that's the pattern of...
Exactly, that's the idea.
So it's going to be enough of a change that we would say, wow, this is that.
Yeah, like exactly what's going on here. How does this make any sense? Exactly.
Like a sign for us to do teshuvah.
A sign for us to do teshuvah. Exactly. Meaning listen, and like I said, I'm going to say it again. Like, if there's a drought, we believe that's a sign for us to do teshuvah. But before the Mashiach comes, God is going to want to try to really rattle up people who normally would not take a drought as a sign to do teshuvah. They're like, there's a lot of atheists. Oh, I don't care, whatever. Like, just stop. Enough. Okay, there's another drought in the world. So freaking what, right? I'm expressing the atheist position. So God is going to want to shake us up to the extent where even people who normally would not do teshuvah, as wait, this is like a little weird, right? So even October 7th, a lot of people got shook up by it, and it was so weird what happened that many people many people in Israel, I don't want to say everyone, there's a lot of atheists in this, they have their people who are just whatever, not necessarily in the correct road, right? But a lot of people did make teshuvah because it was so strange. Like October 7th was just rattling. It didn't make any sense, right? So that would be an example of year one. All right. Shenia. Let's now deal with the second year. Chiseh Ra'ab Mishtalechim. There are going to be there's going to be hunger pains, meaning because in year one there would be drought in a lot of places, which normally there would be water, so people are going to have hunger pains, spears of hunger. God forbid. One of the really scary things about the war in Ukraine is that Ukraine produces a huge amount of the world's wheat. And there was fear that the war would disrupt the supply of wheat and potentially cause starvation. And with Hashem's grace, that hasn't happened. And really, that's one of the wars that I very, very sincerely, very, very much hope that with Hashem's help, Trump ends that war, because that war could have catastrophic effects.
He said he would end it right away.
Right.
He'll sit them down and end it.
Ezrat Hashem, it should happen, because they produce a lot of food there, and if God forbid that wheat got disrupted, it would be a very, very horrible thing. Okay, so the second year it's going to be hunger pains. Hunger pains doesn't mean there's going to be no food, but there's not going to be enough food. Okay, year 3, Shelishit Ra'ab Gadol. The third year, it's going to be an outright famine. There's going to be a huge starvation. Umetim anashim anashim bataf. And men, women, children, Hasidim, pious people, Shema Aseh, people who do good deeds, the Torah, people who study Torah. I'm sorry, the Shema Aseh. I'm sorry, my mistake in the reading. These people will be subject to the starvation. Meaning the starvation, there's a thing in the Gemara that when the Malach HaMavet comes and there's a Magefa, if the Malach HaMavet is given permission by God to bring about a desolation, and when that happens, the Gemara says that the Malach HaMavet doesn't distinguish between pious and wicked. Meaning, if the Malach HaMavet is giving the carte blanche to go and do a desolation, God forbid, that everybody gets affected. And that's what this is talking about. The third year, that's why it says Anashim, Nashim, Batab, men, women, children, Hasidim, pious, and Shema Aseh, and also people who have good deeds. So this is the third year. The Torah mishtakachat milomdeha. And at this point, there's going to be no more Torah. People are going to forget about the Talmud Torah. because they're going to be so involved in trying to get food that they're not going to be studying, and that's it. So that like the light of the Torah would have diminished. That's year 3.
Not great,
Well,
not great.
you noticed.
That's only year 3.
That's year 3. Okay.
Rather, they don't make the distinction between learning Torah and practicing mitzvot. Right?
Oh no, because it says Anshe Maaseh. It says people who do deeds.
Yeah.
It's called Anshe Maaseh because in Jewish thinking, we study Torah for the purpose. Have a good evening. Take care. We study Torah for the purpose of performing the Torah. Meaning, we don't have this idea of studying Torah intellectually, but not internalizing it and practicing it, right? So always Talmud Torah is for the purpose of fulfilling the mitzvot in the Torah.
Right. So if you're getting to a point where you're too preoccupied, you're not studying Torah. So the idea that you're not increasing your mitzvot, that you're sort of status quo.
Yeah, you're kind of status quo and you're not where you should be. Yeah, for sure. Because if you don't study, you're not going to practice. We believe the 2 things are essential. You need to study so that you're always inspired to practice, right? But you can't just study and say, I'm not going to practice either. Neither is good. Okay. But the 4th year, things begin to get a little better because, so what's going to happen is the first 3 years are going to shake us up. It's going to be very rattling. And now people are going to begin to make teshuvah. So the 4th year, sova, ve'eno sova. There's going to be a situation where things are going to begin turning around. And again, because we made teshuvah, because of when bad things happen to Am Yisrael, so during the first 3 years, this increasing famine is going to lead people to make teshuvah, and then year 4, it's going to be satisfied, but not completely satisfied. Meaning things are getting better, but they're not quite where they should be. But then the 5th year, B'Hamishit, Sova Gadol, the 5th year, it's going to be tremendous prosperity. The Ochelim, people are going to be eating. The Shotim, people are going to be drinking. Usmechim, people are going to be happy. The Torah, Hozeret Delomedea, and the Torah will return. People will be studying again, because when you have prosperity and you have what you need, you can study. That's the 5th year. So meaning Am Yisrael would have reached a spiritual climax. So you see what happened? So the first year, we weren't behaving good for us. So then God is like, okay, rattling us up. 2nd year, getting bad. 3rd year, horrible. And now people make teshuvah. So the 4th year, we begin to see things better. 5th year, things are fantastic. And we study Torah, so we reach this new spiritual height. Ashishit kolot. In the 6th year, there's going to be these sounds, these voices. Okay? So I'll say in a moment what that is. So Bashishit kolot, nice. These sounds. Bashavi'it, in the 7th year, Milchamot. That's when Gog and Magog is going to be. And Ben Mosa'eh Shavi'it, and finally, in the 8th year, Ben David Ba. The Mashiach is going to come and he's going to be the one who stops the wars. Meaning, there's going to be the wars, right? And these wars are going to be Gog and Magog, the famous battles that we read about sometimes, or we talk about sometimes. And then the Mashiach arrives a year after, and he's the one who puts an end to the war and he brings peace, and then eventually he builds the Beit HaMikdash, and all of the prophetic writings, the good prophetic writings, they take place. Let's read.
This is an 8-year period.
So, right, it's 7 years, the pre-Messianic period, and then the 8th year the Mashiach comes. Correct. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to tell you how I understand this.
He comes or he just announces himself?
No, it says, Ben Mosai Shavit Ben David Ba, he arrives. What does it mean he arrives?
He gets elected.
He got selected. It means that he's going to turn everything around. His arrival is not just, oh, I'm here, but, well, okay, if you're here, so what are you doing? I'm here, and now the wars are turning around. So the Mashiach is going to be the one who turns the wars around, and he reestablishes the kingdom of David HaMelech.
Wouldn't the war end quickly once Mashiach comes? Isn't that what
we hope so, right? I mean, I think so. I think, once Mashiach arrives, the war ends quickly. I think the war ends quickly because there's going to be miracles happening. I think there's going to be unusual things happening in Israel, Halazatim, and and then he's going to arrive. Okay, let me explain the deeper layer of this.
I have a question.
Questions, two questions.
Yeah, please go ahead.
What triggers the, as you said, spiritual climax in year 5 to all-out war?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So why does it end with all-out war? Like if we're having the spiritual climax, and suddenly, year 6, we're hearing these voices, like terrifying voices, obviously, and then year 7, it's like war. Like what just happened? So here's what happened. So what happened is that we need to be ready for Gog and Magog. Meaning, Gog and Magog is going to be a period in Jewish history. And this is my interpretation, by the way. I respect different interpretations. Maybe different people give you slightly different, but I think this is probably a correct interpretation. Gog and Magog is going to be a period in Jewish history which is going to be unlike any other period in Jewish history. And in terms of the intensity, in terms of the fact that you're really going to have, in order to survive Gog and Magog, you're going to have to be ready for Gog and Magog at the spiritual level. You see what I'm saying? Meaning, if we're not spiritually ready for Gog and Magog and all the things that are going to be happening, we're not going to be able to survive it and come out, victorious on the other side, right? Meaning, if it's going to be this huge war where Israel, like a little teeny country, is subjected to this, Gog and Magog, and they invade Israel, and terrible things happen. How do we survive that? Well, we survive that because we're at a spiritual height where we are worthy of the Mashiach, because only the Mashiach can turn it around. You see what I'm saying? So because only the Mashiach can turn it around, well, we have to be worthy of Mashiach. To be worthy of Mashiach, we have to be in year 5 and 6, year 4 and 5 rather, and then year 6, the voices, and then year 7, the war. And we survive the war because we have the merit to survive the war, and therefore the Mashiach comes and redeems us. That's what was that answers your question. You had a question?
Joey, I think I want.
Joey.
Well, how is the Mashiach going to fight the Supreme Court? That's impossible. Nobody else was able to do it.
So
Put us in
he's
the
referring to
Civil
the
War
Supreme Court in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They almost put us in a civil war. So how is Mashiach going to figure that out?
I wouldn't be, first of all, I think that it could be that Bibi has a plan to dismantle their power. Could be. I think Bibi now is becoming very popular, and I think with Trump in power, I wouldn't be surprised if Bibi figures out how to dismantle the Supreme Court. When I say dismantle, just to give you the context, the Supreme Court in Israel has become like a judicial dictatorship, whereby they basically have the right, and they're not embarrassed to employ this right, to undo government legislation, to undo army decisions. Like they get involved in almost every single thing. Like, for example, why were the Palestinians able to come October 7th into Israel? Well, because the Supreme Court insisted that the Palestinians can come all the way up to the gate and throw things at the soldiers and insult them, and every day they would come up to the gate, and there was nothing we could do because the Supreme Court said you can't stop that, right? It's right. So, or for example, you want to destroy the house of a terrorist who just killed 20 Jews. The Supreme Court said no, you can't just destroy the house. You have to go through a whole procedure. So the Supreme Court in Israel has become like it's a tyranny. They're tyrannical. They're left-wing loonies. They're progressive in the worst way, and they're running the country. And it doesn't matter what the election is. The Supreme Court is always there. So anytime like the people we want to deal harshly with terrorists, the Supreme Court says no, you can't. We don't like it. So
Put them on trial.
What?
We want $1 million shekels to put them on trial.
So I think the Mashiach will be able to deal. If Bibi doesn't deal with them first, I think the Mashiach will be able to handle it. He'll do it. It'll happen. Okay. Now let me give you the deeper level of this layer of this. So I think what this means is, I think the famine is going to be a famine for true Torah. Allow me to explain. We said before, in the earlier part of the sugya, we said that when the Mashiach comes, Talmidei Chachamim Mitma'atim. What is Talmidei Chachamim Mitma'atim? Real Torah scholars are going to become less. So now tie that up with this baraita that we just read. The famine that it's talking about is a famine of Torah. And in the first year, it says, getting back to the baraita, Shana Rishona, Bimtarti al Irahat, is still going to be a little Torah in some areas, but in other places, there's going to be no Torah. In the second year, it's going to be hunger pains, because when you don't have the wisdom of the Torah guiding the nation, it begins to have consequences. The third year, people die. You know why people die? Because Bar Minan, if there's no Torah, or the Torah is farcical, or it's a false version of the Torah, and now people are not studying correctly, or not understanding correctly, then unfortunately it leads to tragedies, because, right, we believe the Torah protects us. If a person fulfills the Torah and studies the Torah and understands things that he's supposed to understand, that's a protection, right? But without that, people die, right? That's why the Torah mishtakach milomedeh, and that's a relationship between people dying and there's no more Torah. People forgot the Torah. You got it? The fourth year, and it doesn't say how this is going to happen, there's going to be a reawakening. I can speculate that maybe people will reject the prior and they will be looking for something new, because there's going to be these tragedies and they're going to say, hey, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? So people are going to wake up to this and they're going to be looking for how can they satisfy themselves, not from physical hunger, from spiritual hunger. A Hamishit, and when Am Yisrael wants to find the real Torah, Hashem will help them. Not even a question. And there's going to be tremendous, Sova Gadol means tremendous prosperity. I interpret that as spiritual prosperity. Ochelim v'shotim, people will have food, of course, people will have drinks, but they're going to be happy, because you can be eating the best food in the world, you can be drinking the best drink in the world, but if you don't have the right spiritual state of mind, you ain't going to enjoy it so much. On the other hand, death row, man, I got to tell you, everyone who's on death row, the day that they execute them, they say, what do you want? Like a good steak? I was like, they're about to execute you. How do you enjoy that steak? Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they enjoy it. I've never been on death row, so I can't speak to that. But anyway, but here it's smechim b'Torah. They're going to be happy. Usmechim. The Torah chozeret lelomedea. The Torah, you see, the Torah is returning. So I think my interpretation is correct. The bashishit kolot. Now, the voices here, I think, are going to be the voices of prophecy, because there's a pasuk that says that it says, "Hine anochi sholeach lachem et Eliyah hanavi lifnei bo yom Adonai hagadol v'hanora." There's going to be a terrifying day, which is the Shana Shevi'it, the Milchamot of the 7th year. So before this horrible day means period in time, Lifnei bo yom Adonai hagadol v'hanora, there will be a day unto God that will be terrifying, that war. I'm going to send you Eliyahu Hanavi. That's the kolot of the 6th year. So in the 6th year, Eliyahu Hanavi comes, and you begin to hear the prophetic sounds again. And that itself is, by the way, terrifying, of course, right? But it's going to be, people are going to be like conscious in their minds of what's about to take place in the 7th year. You see what I'm saying? Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come back. He's going to make people aware, guys, get ready, because you got to be ready for this war. And people are going to become, their minds, their neshamot, and like I told you before, I said this 2 or 3 times already, but I'll say it again in the context of this. Before October 7th, a lot of people sensed that stuff was happening. Meaning they had dreams that night, or they had dreams the week before, right? So that's a kolot, right? But here it's going to be like crazy kolot, because Eliyahu Hanavi is going to arrive, and he's going to be warning the people. And then Bashevi'it, that's Yom Hashem HaGadol V'HaNorah, right? And then Mosa'eh Shevi'it, after experiencing Gog Magog, which will be sort of like the kaparat avonot for Am Yisrael, for all of the centuries, all the Chilul Shabbat, all the eating on kosher, all like everything that happened over the last whatever number of the centuries. That's going to be the kapara, and then it's going to be Mashiach ben David ba. All right. All right. Let's continue. Or questions? Wow, such silence.
So if October 7th was one of the triggers, which year would that be, 3 or 4?
So 2000. I'm sorry.
7, that was the war.
Year 7? It's not a war.
Not
Yeah.
a war, this is the war.
So it didn't happen because if you do the calculation, 2028, Tafshin Pehet, 2020. I mean January. It's going to be September 2027 will be the Shenat Shemitah. September 2027, right? So that means that September 2021 was year 1. September 2023 was year 3. And then Shenat Shemitah, as I said, will be September 2027, and then we'll see. You know, my father used to say something really smart, because sometimes we study like these Gemariot, or I bring him things in the Tanakh, and he once told me, he said, look, everything, it's great, and study, continue studying, but he says, you never really know for sure till after it happens. You really, right? I mean, sometimes after that happens, then this was the first year, and is it talking about 7 years? Is it talking about 7 periods of time? Right? 7 stages, because in the creation of the world, where there was 7 days, the 7 days weren't 7 days, it was 7 stages. So what is it talking about here? Right? So I think it's 7 stages.
We'll never know, like you said.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, exactly the point. So it's giving you will each stage be 365.25 solar year. Why? Why does
Year, it uses the word year.
it just is Shavua, but sometimes Shavua in the Torah means a week,
Period.
right? And it could be a period. It could be a period of time. So we don't know exactly because the Chachamim speak in allegories. I believe it's talking about 7 stages. There's going to be a stage.
It doesn't have to be even either.
Right, exactly. So there'll be a stage where there's a famine for Torah, and then it becomes wars, and then tragedies happen. And I'm saying it could be October 20 was one of those tragedies that happened because we're missing something. Yeah, again, I'm not judging anyone. I'm not judging anything. I'm just speculating as to how this would correlate. What happened October 7th was something. We can't ignore it. Right? So was that like the hunger pains or the results? They said deaths and men, women, children dying. Maybe we're going to be entering stage 4, by the way. We could be entering stage 4, which is now people are looking for Torah. By the way, a lot of people are in Israel.
Is there any explanation as to why this is necessary?
Yeah, because the human nature is such that we always want to follow the people around us. And always the downfall of the Jewish people has always been that we just want to follow the people around us. And if you're following the people around you, you're not following the Torah, right? So in the days of the first temple, the people around us were doing idolatry, and so did we, right? So you say, well, you can't fault us. Well, I mean, we have the Torah, right? So we have to get ready for this point where we are eternally God's nation. So after going through all these trials and tribulations, we will be ready for that.
So the issue is that the simulation is a problem. We're here to be a light to the world, and when we go the other way, we're producing the opposite effect.
Yeah, very much so.
And then we get...
Very much so. So it could be that we went through the first 3 stages. I see that, in my opinion, if you ask me. And October 7th was a culmination of stage 3. And now I see people in Israel returning to the Torah. Many people want to know Torah, want to study Torah, want to understand. There's a tremendous thirst like there never was. So I believe that in this particular story, we're entering, or we're already in stage 4, right? We're already in stage 4, which is wonderful. I hope I'm right, by the way. Because if I'm wrong, man, like a lot of bad things happening. Okay.
The stage can take a very long time.
And a stage can take a long time, but if we are in stage 4, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
It can take years.
Decades.
Yeah, but that means that we passed the first 3 stages, which are terrible. So those first 3 stages were really like just, bad place to be, right? So we're going to a better place, and then we'll reach a point of Nevu'ah, Eliyahu Hanavi, and then we'll come to Gog and Magog, and then we'll come to Mashiach. Okay.
At the very end, there's a stage of like intense poverty, right?
No, but that was in year 3.
okay.
and that the poverty, I interpreted it as poverty of Torah.
Oh, okay.
Because it keeps returning to that theme, and there's no Torah. What are you talking about food, or are you talking about Torah? Which is it, right? And we know that in rabbinic thinking, they always refer to the Torah as like a type of like spiritual food, right? That's how I understand it. Again, I believe I gave you the best explanation that I can give, right? Okay, let's continue a couple more minutes. No football games tonight. No election. Man, life seems very boring suddenly. Nothing happening. World Series, everything. Okay.
Now you have to talk to your wife.
Well, yeah. Oh, and that's it. I haven't posted on Instagram in almost a week. I don't know. I stopped watching.
Everything is good, Rabbi.
Everything is good. Nothing to complain about. There's nothing to complain about. Like I'm not even watching Instagram that much anymore. Like that's just
You have to
whatever.
watch Fox News. You might miss an episode.
Pete Hegseth. They just took him to the Department of Defense. You heard?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? It's like what? It's crazy. Well, what's happening is just crazy. I gotta tell you, it's like it's mamash. It's like
Press secretary.
All right. He's gonna be the press secretary.
I thought he
No, the press
No,
secretary is a nice looking G.
No, he's in Department of Defense.
Nice looking G.
Department of Defense, right? Okay, it's amazing. What's happening is just amazing. Amar Rav Yosef. Right, is that what we're up to?
Yes.
Yeah. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef, he's being skeptical. He says, "Hakama shav'iti hava ken velata." There was many years where the Shinat Shemitah, there was a war, and no Mashiach came afterwards. Right. There was many, by the way, if you look at the calendar, actually once did it, Shinat Shemitah. There's a lot of years where really Shinat Shemitah, there's wars. Right? So there's a lot of wars in Shinat Shemitah. I don't see no Mashiach coming. Amar Avayeh, Bashishit Kolot. Avayeh says, look, I'm not saying any time there's a war on year 7 that the Mashiach will come in year 8. You have to have the chain of events happening, and year 6, Kolot, the voices, right? So we had a lot of wars that took place in year 7. We didn't have year 6 where suddenly there's Nivu'ah and people are hearing the sounds of the Malachim in the heavens warning them it's going to be over soon, folks. That hasn't happened. So if Bashishit Kolot and then Bashavit Milchamot, and if in the 6th year you have the voices and in the 7th year you have the wars, you didn't have that yet. Mihava. And all the chain of events didn't take place. And it's true. All right, one more paragraph in the Gemara. We'll stop at 9:15, right? Usually we go to 9:15?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here we go. This is a pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk says as follows: Asher harefu oyevecha Adonai, Asher harefu ikkevot meshichecha. These enemies, your enemies, God, they insult, they hurl abuse at ikkevot meshichecha. It doesn't say they hurl abuse at the Mashiach. They hurl abuse at the footsteps of the Mashiach, meaning the enemies of God, they deny that the Mashiach is going to come, right? The footsteps means heralding the arrival of the Mashiach. So we're all looking forward to the arrival of the Mashiach, and they're taunting us, just saying, don't tell us about the Mashiach. So these people, your enemies, God, they taunt the very notion of Mashiach. That's the topic. That's the pasuk that describes the situation before the Mashiach comes. So here goes, Tanya. You see, so we're looking at the same historical period, the pre-Messianic period, that is, from slightly different angles, right? So Tanya, Dor sheben David babo, the generation that the son of David arrives. Bet havaad yeh liznut is a very difficult statement. I'll explain it, maybe not today, maybe next time, but it literally means the Bet havaad is the place of the assembly of the Chachamim. So the Bet Vad means the Chachamim want to get together, and the Chachamim are getting together, and the Bet Vad, the place that they get together, ends up being Bar Minan, God forbid, it'll turn into a place of prostitutes, right? Terrible, terrible statement. What does that mean? How can the Gemara say that? I'll tell you what it means. Not fun to hear, but I'll give you my own opinion, and you can accept it, you can reject it, you can hate it, you can love it, whatever. I'll tell you what that means. But first, let's finish the statement. The north part of Israel will be desolate. It'll be destroyed. What's happening? Who lives in the north of Israel nowadays?
Druzies.
Yeah, and them, and that's it. The Druze. It's all Chorba Ushmama. Just today, 2 people died in Hazat, in Nahariya, one of the northern cities. I can't believe there's still people there, but whoever's there, they're very brave people. The Hagavlan Ye'esham. Another thing that's going to happen is people who live on the border, they're going to be Ye'esham. I'm giving you my explanation. Ye'esham milashon ashma. What does ashma mean? Guilty, meaning you people are no good. I'm going to tell you what that means. And then these same people live in the border. There's going to be another set of people who live in the border, and they're going to have to leave their towns, and they're going to go inside Israel, and they're going to be going from place to place. They're not going to have a place to stay. When I was in Israel this summer, one of the really, strong or telling symbols of the state of what's happening in Israel. So my parents, they have a house, my father, Alav Shalom, my mom, we have a house in Netanya, a really beautiful area, like by the beach. And it's an area, there's like a lot of hotels. And usually the hotels are beautiful, tourists, everything. All the hotels were filled with people from the border towns, from the south and from the north. And like you see in the hotels, like you saw like people had like their laundry hanging from the windows. Usually in a hotel, you don't see, laundry hanging. You have like bicycles on the terrace, balls, it's all like messy. Hazat. These people are suffering. But anyway, it's literally describing what's happening today.
Did you think of this came around when you saw that?
100. Oh yes, you better believe it. So it's crazy, right? And they're still not going home. They're still not going home. It's been a year. They're trying. No, I'm not blaming anyone. But it's a tragedy, and it's describing this. The people who really have wisdom are going to be despised. So people who really have fear of God, they're going to be looked down upon. And the face of the generation will be like the face of a dog. This is a very deep thing. It's 9:15 now. I'm not going to explain it now. Next week I'll explain it. Some shocking things. I'm going to tell you the way I see it, and you'll take it from there. His school name soon.